Hey guys, David Clayton here with GuitarBreakdown.com, and today we're going to break down another really short lick. We're starting a feature over at GuitarBreakdown.com, if you haven't checked it out already, it's going to be a whole section based on really short ideas. So they're ideas that are maybe, I don't know, 6 notes, 10 notes long, or they're licks that are 2 measures long. And instead of analyzing, we're still going to do the long 6-part solos, 6-part long 32-bar solo kind of lessons. But we've had a lot of requests for learning really short, like jazz 2-5-1 licks, or little short country banjo roll licks. And so what we thought we'd do is we're going to just show you a really short lick, and then we're going to do a brief lesson after that showing you how you can get the most out of that lick, how you can really explore with these ideas. Because I think that's the best way to learn a lick, instead of just learning an idea and then playing it whenever you come across that chord progression or whatever. Learn from the licks and really take some time and practice, and then those ideas are really going to start creeping into your own playing. So this one is based off of an article that was written in Guitar Techniques magazine in the December 2012 issue. It was based on Howard Roberts. He was the founder of GIT. We've already done one lick. There's a whole bunch. There's probably about 12 to 15 licks in this article. So if you haven't gotten it, I would suggest getting this back issue. But I would also suggest subscribing to Guitar Techniques magazine. Now, I'm not affiliated with them at all. I just really think they have a great product, especially their jazz section in the magazine. Over the last 6 or 7 months that I've been looking at it, really looking at it in depth and regularly, their jazz section has never disappointed. So this idea is based out of that article, and it's actually the 3rd lick in that article. Alright, so this lick is a 2-5-1 in the key of F. So it's starting on the 2 chord, and it's playing 1 chord per measure. So it starts on the G minor 7 to a C dominant 7 to an F major 7. Okay? Now this lick starts with a really cool jazz kind of arpeggio, and what we're going to do here is we're going to walk through note for note this whole lick. Then we're going to come back and we're going to analyze little bits and pieces of it real quickly, and then we're going to start exploring with it. And I'm going to show you a few different ways that you might want to start exploring with it. Alright, so this lick starts with your first finger on the 5th fret of the D string, and then you play the 7th and 8th fret, all on the D string. Now you can use your 3rd and 4th finger, or you could just use your 4th finger on the 7th fret and slide it up to the 8th fret. That's kind of how I end up playing it. And the reason why you want your pinky to end up on that 8th fret of the D string is because the next thing that happens is a major 7th arpeggio, where you have 1 finger on each of the next 4 strings, or the next 3 strings. So you have your pinky on the 8th fret of the D string, 3rd finger's on the 7th fret of the G string, 2nd finger's on the 6th fret of the B string, and your 1st finger's on the 5th fret of the E string. And you end up having what's essentially a B flat major 7 arpeggio. Right? So the beginning of the lick goes. Now rhythmically, this whole idea is all 8th notes, with the exception of there's 2 parts where there's a triplet, and this is one of those parts, and then there's another part where there's a 16th note thing happening. So this lick starts with 2 8th notes, then it goes to a triplet, then it goes back to 16th note, or 8th notes, I'm sorry. So that's the beginning of the lick. And another thing you can do is you can sweep pick or alternate pick. I find it a little easier to sweep that. So I pick the first note, pick the second note, slide, and then I sweep pick from the G, B, and E string. Just a little easier for me. I did try alternate picking this, but I didn't like the tone I was getting. I was getting that pick sound I just like the sweep a little better. Alright, so after it sweeps up that arpeggio, it does this little jazzy thing where it goes from the 7th fret to the 8th fret of the B string. then it goes to the 5th fret and the 6th fret of the E string. So you have, then it goes up here where it plays the 8th fret and the 9th fret, and there's a few different ways you could play this. I end up doing the 2nd finger on the 8th fret and slide up or move it up to the 9th fret. Or you can move this all the way up here and use your 1st finger on the 8th fret and 9th fret. So the first way that I do it is, or you can do it where you do that bigger shift. Okay? It's just preference, depends how you are more comfortable with it. So the whole thing is, then it goes into this little trill where these first 2 notes are 16th notes, and it's going from the 11th fret to the 9th fret. It's pulling off, and it pulls off to that 8th fret. So 11, 9, 8, all on the E string. Then it does this little thing again, kind of the same pattern as you had down here, where it goes from the, after that trill, it goes from the 10th fret to the 11th fret on the B string. So that whole thing is. Then it goes back to that 10th fret of the E string. Then it does this trill here. This one's a triplet, going from the 8th fret to 9th fret to the 8th fret on the B string. Then it just goes down to the 10th fret on the G string to the 10th fret on the D string. And then it plays that 10th fret on the D string again. So the whole thing is. All right, so the first thing we're going to do here is just talk a little bit about what's going on in this lick. And then we're going to go into exploring a little. But again, we're going to do this rather quickly. So it's just to give you some ideas of how to take a lick and start getting a lot out of it. So this idea starts on a G minor 7 chord, right? So it is starting with an arpeggio. Well, it walks up a few scale tones. Right? Now, if you look at this arpeggio, a lot of people see that and they'll see this shape in here, which is basically a B flat major 7 arpeggio. Right? Now, the other way you could look at this is, again, it's being played over a G minor 7 chord. And the first note in the arpeggio, if you just think of these 4 notes as the arpeggio, right? You have your minor 3rd of G, then you have your 5th, then you have your minor 7. So far it's just a G minor 7 arpeggio, right? Now, what happens next is you get this note where it's actually the 9th of G. So really you have a G minor 9 arpeggio, right? So you can look at it 2 different ways. One, it's a G minor 9 arpeggio, or you can look at it as it's a major 7 arpeggio being played up a minor 3rd from that chord. Now there's a whole bunch of theories of you could play this over this chord, you play this up a major 3rd, or you play this down a half step, or you play, there's a whole bunch of things that will give you basically different tonalities. So this arpeggio is giving you a minor 7, a G minor 7 sound, right? But it's thrown in this note, which is the 9th, which just sounds really cool. So one thing you might want to get out of this is that anytime you play, or for the most part, anytime you play over a minor chord or a minor 7 chord, you can play a major 7 arpeggio up a minor 3rd. So if you're playing, say, in C minor, right, you can play up a minor 3rd and play, right? You could play basically an E flat major 7 arpeggio of it, and all those notes will work, and it will give you that 9th interval. just sounds really, really cool. All right, so the next thing I want to look at is that cool little jazzy note you kind of get in there after that arpeggio. And it's just kind of, it's almost like a passing tone at this point, because it doesn't hang on it at all. But really what's going on here, if you want to analyze it this way, is it's borrowing a note from melodic minor. Now, if you play just a regular minor scale, and whatever sixth you want to use there, right? That's normally what you might play over that G minor chord. But if you start playing this, where you have, it still works. It's adding tension, and that's kind of what melodic minor kind of does if you're using it over a minor chord, because that's just a kind of tense note because it's a half step away from the root. Now, a lot of times students they'll hear, okay, you can play Dorian over this, then here you go to melodic minor, and then here you go to an alter scale, and what they end up doing is they'll play Dorian here, then when the next chord comes and they play like melodic minor, they'll switch their whole train of thought to, okay, now I got to play melodic minor here. Whereas what you really should start trying to explore with is play all your minor licks, play all your blues licks, and then just throw in that major seventh at once in a while. And now you're suggesting a kind of outsound melodic minor thing. And it's a really cool thing, and that's kind of what's going on here. The only weird note is that one note, right? And everything else sounds great.